This is Gabe Ignetti, and welcome again to the Ecomodernist channel live. We have with us today Tim Larson and Eugene Kramer, and our subject for today is solutions to sea level rise. Now, I know that there is no real complete solution, but there are partial solutions, and there's a lot that we could do. So let's get on with the show.
This was a news report. Antarctic melting doomsday glacier could raise sea level rise by 10 feet. It's about the size of Florida. And we just don't know when this is going to happen. It's inevitable that it does happen, sadly. The study that they've done, the most recent one, shows that the melt makes it more fragile in terms of falling into the sea than it was previously thought. And we always seem to get worse reports about climate than was originally estimated. It's all educated guesses. We could do all the best things in the world, and then it could be a volcanic event, earthquake maybe. So, this is all up in the air. It could be maybe a century before it goes down. But when it goes down, this is going to have some serious results. And the Pine Island Glacier and the Thwaites were to destabilize several of the neighboring areas and fall apart, including a widespread collapse and, of course, causing sea level rise to go up 10 feet. And this is a map of several major cities. The red is with population over 10 million. And I think 60% of the United States lives along the coast. And, okay, so if this happens, worst case scenario, what next? It will be something that's on the minds of our world leaders very sharply if this were to happen. And one of the things that is interesting that I would bring up, that is what they call the Sahara Sea. And this is a project that went all the way back to the late 1800s. It's all conceptualized, even up to now. But when they did the topography of Africa, one of the first people to do this topography and observe it calculated that the inland areas of North Africa are the size of the Mediterranean. And if you could put canals to these areas, you could create inland seas. Of course, you got to realize that, you look at a big map like this, any canal that you build, it'd be a grand project and you couldn't even see it. So it would be a little bit of a drip, really. And you got to keep that in mind. And what would happen is it wouldn't fill up for a hell of a long time. You get a lot of hydropower out of it. But also what you would get is that the water that goes into the lower area would not fill up unless it was big, or maybe not for a long time. It would end up evaporating. You'd have a lot of salt deposits. But what's more interesting, you might have a change of climate in the Sahara region because you have an awful lot of precipitation, which will enable the greening of the Sahara, which will suck up a lot of carbon dioxide. And it will also, though, create a dark albedo, which will kind of counteract that in terms of global warming, though. But that would likely be a good thing for the countries. And if you remember El Alamein, the area that they fought the battle in World War II, that was way under sea level. We're talking about almost 300 feet under sea level at the high points. I think 285 feet under sea level. And this is what I was talking about. The El Alamein region is called the Quattara Depression. Depression covers 19,000 square miles. That's the size of Lake Ontario, or twice the size of Lebanon. And you can see it up a little closer. It's hardly inhabited. 300 people total live in the area. The Egyptian government is all for it. By the way, the Moroccan government is all for it too, because to kind of change a desert into a verdant oasis, and even have a lot of shorefront property that didn't exist where you just got nothing. I believe it was the French proposed to Nasser that this is in the 1950s, that they build a giant canal by exploding 213, I believe, nuclear weapons in a line from the Mediterranean to there to create the canal. But the Egyptians kind of nixed that Any thoughts?
It's certainly an interesting idea to try to green the Sahara. These mega projects are very interesting and very controversial. It's astounding, though, that they're even conceivable as a potential upside or regional upside in a sea level rise case. It's kind of amazing. And even the problems with the extra salt caused by the local evaporation of these seas is actually a business case for mining the salts out of the sea, and the lithium and the uranium and the all of the different salts out of the seas that are naturally in the ocean and Mediterranean waters, so that they could be viable economic processes that could help keep down the salinity. Of course, if you did nothing to try to affect the salinity, all you would get is saltier and saltier seas, and then it turns into sort of a salt wasteland where nothing grows, though you do get the evaporative effects in the local rainfall because of the water source right there. It's not something that would support marine life. These are geoengineering projects on a massive scale, but with a 10-foot rise of global sea levels, there's potentials that are interesting, but still kind of counterproductive to trying to keep down the carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere, because this is sort of a progressive change and with a positive feedback loop. And as a systems engineer, positive feedback loops are processes that go out of control. And it's nice that the planet can absorb all of these changes and that some local economies will benefit. But 10 feet, Venice is gone, Miami is gone. The multi-billion-dollar seawall project in Venice that they're working on is useless with a 10-foot sea level rise, because that wall in Venice is only to prevent surge into Venice, but the sidewalks in Venice are feet above the water line. If the sea level in 100 years is 10 feet higher because of global sea level rise, then they'd have to build, I guess, new sidewalks 1 story up, and all their first level homes would now be basement level homes. But that's not a fix. That's an interesting argument to talk about. Where do you spend your money in protecting the assets that are already there, or you spend the money to make sure that the assets that are most at risk aren't further developed and the development goes into areas that are less at risk?
Yeah.
So
I don't think that would be either or proposition. It's just too much invested. Let's say if you're Manhattan, which is a different case, you can put a seawall around the whole of Manhattan. That's conceivable. And I don't think they're going to say, well, forget about Manhattan.
None of these projects would make a difference in climate, for sure, and certainly not within decades. I can't see there even being a visible wet spot for a long, long time. When they were thinking about doing this in the Salton Sea, they're worried about it drying up, because the Salton Sea
that's in California.
It's in California. It's east of LA. And since it's been drying up, it's a major cause of air pollution in Los Angeles from the wind blowing it in there. Could probably make a direct case for people dying. They decided that even if they did put in large pipelines and make hydroelectricity and try to replenish it from the sea, it would take so many years. And the seawater is not nearly salty enough. Too much money and not enough effect, I believe. Eugene brings up these floodgates in Venice. It was just for storm surge. It really wasn't general sea level rise. Those big gates would cost more than geoengineering in total. It's very, very doable. In fact, anybody with money could basically get it started in a matter of weeks. The first experiments that David Keith is doing is with balloons, which are very, very small. He wants to start this with large corporate jets, maybe with some engine modification and very little else. So easily started the experiments within days. Anything we do in geoengineering has to be coupled with zero carbon emissions.
Yes.
And that's a great note to end on. So again, this is Gabe Ignetti. I want to thank everyone for joining us, and we'll be seeing you till next time.
Please subscribe to us on YouTube, Ecomodernist channel. Also to subscribe to us on Twitter and Facebook, Ecomodernist Society of North America.
And online at https://esna.earth.